What's up, people? Today's story is the blizzard of 78 and what the hell we did for fun. So, if you don't know, the blizzard of 78, yeah, 78. And we were off work and school, being in New England for a whole week. I think it was 5 or 7 days. And being a kid, it was the best thing in the world. What a memory. So, I think it was just the weathermen screwed up. Something turned or something happened and they caught everybody off guard. Literally, plows weren't ready because look it up, the blizzard of 78 in New England. And there was highways of cars just stuck because the snow came down so hard, so quick. There were, I'm going to say 6 to 8 to maybe even 10 or 12 snowdrifts. Meaning, if you don't know what a snowdrift is, the snow comes down and as the wind hits a certain section, it just keeps piling up on that one drift. And you could get enormous. So, being a little kid, I remember coming out of my house and literally, I'm not kidding, a wall of snow. I remember going downstairs in my basement and we had a big sliding door and it was all white. It was like being snowed in. Now, my property was higher in the front, lower in the back. And that's where all the snow came in. And I remember saying, we had a dog. We got to get shovelers. You got to pee and poo inside. We got to give her a little space. Give her something. But that was wild. But I remember just digging out. My dad did not have a snowblower. We didn't grow up with the snowblower. It was always shovels, which I hated. But it was just shovel, shovel, shovel. You got a path. It was like walking through the Matrix. Just a path of snow. And it was always the richest guy who had the snowblower back then, or the oldest guy. And I remember one snowblower path right through the middle of the street because you couldn't see the cars parked. The cars were over the car by 2 or 3 feet. So you could just see lumps where the cars were. And the middle of the street, you couldn't get there. That was it. But like I said, look up blizzard of 78. And I remember, we had food, but I remember grabbing my sled this was the wooden one. It was a wooden sled. I forget the name of it. It was a wooden sled with handles that you could move slightly, and it had a rope on it with the steel on the bottom. It was the typical wooden 70s, 60s sled. And you grabbed one of those or one of the plastic discs or whatever. And as soon as they said over the news or the radio, this store's open or certain stores open, you weren't driving cars. There was emergency vehicles and mail. That's all it was that was getting through. And by the time they came around and plowed, it was like the closest thing to, I guess, Chernobyl. Desolate type of thing. You're walking down the street where there used to be plenty of cars and everything is white. White as forever, for on miles. And you're just being a little kid grabbing your sled because what'd you go to store for? Milk, bread, eggs, maybe coffee. It was all the basics. Of course, Ma, grab some cookies. Ma, grab this. Ma, grab that. And this was back in the 70s. What a great time to be alive. I'm telling you. I know it was tough back then to a certain point. But boy, any one of you people, and I want to hear your stories, you got to agree with me. 78 in New England. Yeah, it was rough. It was tough, but it was fun. Being a kid back then, I don't know what it was like being an adult, but boy, man, the memories were just memory overload. That's for sure. Oh my God, did we have fun. Now, going back to the sleds. In the 60s and 70s, we had, maybe even I don't think into the 80s, probably the 70s, we had a plastic red, I think, disc. And that thing was fast, but uncontrollable. Then we had the metal sled with the steel on the bottom. Those were fast, but you couldn't do it on soft snow. The fastest one we had that was slightly controllable, we had a piece of plastic. It was thick. I'm trying to describe it. I'll compare it to something. All right, let me compare it to this. Say this, probably a little thicker, but it was like, picture like Aladdin's carpet, okay, made out of this. They came in all colors. And sometimes you had rope or something at the end. It was probably 2 or 3 feet wide, 3 or 4 feet long. I remember toboggans, more fast stuff. But anyways, the plastic one, that was just zippy, almost uncontrollable. Then they had toboggans. I'm not sure. You guys tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know. Toboggans were the flat wooden ones, and they had a curl on the front. I'm not sure what they had in the bottom. If there were the steel on the bottom, girder type things, sleds, ice skating things, I don't know. But we had toboggans too, and they were bigger but slower. I'm trying to think what else, but mainly it was the plastic. You either got a disc or a piece of roll-up plastic and you just sat on it because that was fast and you wanted fast. Whatever got you down the hill in lightning speed, uncontrollable fun, that's what every kid wanted. I remember looking up on the shelves and saying, okay, this is what I want. I got one of those, get one of those. I forget how much they were. But boy, we had a blast in the snow. But let me hear about your stories too, because I want to hear everybody else's stories. If you experience a winter. Up, there we go. Look at that. I'm going to keep that one in there. So, anyways, every once in a while I do that. I don't know why. I got to reconfigure the table. No, it wasn't an earthquake. It was just me. So, adjust, see what's going on. Other than that, get things in the middle. All right, guys, that was a little bit exciting. So that's that. More stories coming up.